the end of the day, what is the strategy? Strategy is marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And marketing is imperative in any type of business, but it's how you market. And this is what distinguishes us from others, is the fact that we take our social media, we implemented it to our sales team, who then go in turn and pick up the customers and tell them about our product. And it's amazing. But does everybody get it perfect? No. Obviously, are you going to fumble? Of course, but that's the whole beauty of the automotive industry.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting episode of the Coffee with Jason podcast. This morning, Jason is chatting with Neil Shah of Uptown Kia. They'll be jamming about social media strategy and how engagement can grow your brand. Settle in with some of that tasty Closers coffee and get ready to improve your game with your host, Jason Harris. But first, a quick word from our sponsor.
For freshly brewed discussion on automotive sales and marketing, this is Coffee with Jason. The Coffee with Jason podcast is sponsored by Closers Coffee. For that full-bodied, rich, sweet flavor with a bright acidity, drink Closers Coffee, stay caffeinated, and keep on closing. Find out more at closerscoffee.ca.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here with Digital Dealership Solutions. Hey, thanks for joining me on another episode of Coffee with Jason. Today, I have my guest, Neil, Marketing Manager over at Uptown Kia. Hey, Neil, thank you so much for taking the time to come jam with me today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Jason, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, now we got a little time to talk off camera about social media. And I think that's the direction I really want to go in with you, because you guys just do such an amazing job of just executing, right? But before we do that, for everybody out there that's listening, kind of watching, if you can kind of give us that 2-minute origin story that is Neil. Just we have a little background, how you got in the industry, stuff like that, and we'll take the conversation from there.
No, I appreciate that. I am from Cornwall, not too far away from the Toronto crew, and born and raised in this city. I started in the automotive industry roughly around 3 years ago. I had the support and the graciousness of Mr. Eamon Gabriel, who gave me my shot, and I just started. I started learning the craft. I started learning about everything that has to do with the automotive industry. And I have to give credit to that to Stephen Holtzman, who's trained me on that. I consider him to be the guru of social media.
For sure.
And so I started with him, and then just slowly progressed, and now at Kia, and I'm loving it. And every day is a new challenging day in social media.
That's awesome. And you guys have made such a big commitment to social media. So, you know what I like to do is actually kind of start from the beginning and ask the question, why? Like, that you guys started this really hardcore about how long ago? 3 to 4 years?
It was roughly 3 years ago.
Okay. So about 3 years ago, you guys made the commitment, we're going to be all in on social media. So what was the reason why? Was there a discussion around that?
There was a discussion. It was the trend. As you know, Jason, you being in podcasts, you know how it is. Everything takes an evolution. You have to start from somewhere. I mean, we have the traditional media of paper media, and then you have your website media, etc. But really focusing, say, on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on Twitter or on Instagram, it was a new direction that we wanted to take. And I thought it was very important for us to have standards and protocols in place, not just for Uptown Kia, but more importantly for the brand. And that's where we started. That is how the evolution started. And it was something that it took time. It didn't take off right away. Everybody had to get accustomed to what we're trying to do and what we're trying to preach. We take the good as well as the bad, because you need both. You can't be in an automotive industry and have everything 100% perfect. That's impossible. You strive for perfection, but you can't get there unless you have your faults and you improve on it. So that's how we wanted to structure our social media around.
So right out of the gate, you guys just started to do the activities. You embrace those social activities. I'm just curious, in the very beginning, very early on, were there any goals and objectives yet? Or was it more like, let's just get into the activity of doing it, and then through kind of osmosis, we'll figure out what the goals and objectives are?
Well, I think the goals and objectives were already set in stone. And that was to attract our consumers, to see what we can achieve with what we have. And it started with having 4 or 5 people follow us, followed by 100, followed by 500. Now we're up to over 6,000. So it's it's impressive to see how it's taken off. And the aspect of what we try to do is not just to encourage our dealership to focus local, to focus on our brand, but it's also to explore the international aspect of it as well. Because when people see the different stories that come out of Korea, come out of the US, come out of Europe, and ask us when they come in, wow, we saw this post online that you guys did. This is amazing. When are you guys getting it here? When is it going to happen? And then it engages our sales with our consumer. And even if it doesn't lead into a sale, it's more of the engagement and encouragement of that brand. And that's what our social media wants to do, is to encourage the conversation. And that's what's important to us.
Well, and that totally makes sense. So it sounds like what you're saying is kind of early on, those goals and objective, it was really a goal and objective of engagement. That's what you were looking as far as kind of a KPI was kind of overall engagement. And which is cool, because then you can adjust your activities, right? And the efforts you're putting into it if you know what you're working against towards, right? So it's like if the goal and objective in this case was engagement, then what you were posting, how often you're posting, the frequency of what you were posting was just a constant A, B, C, D, E, F test measurement of how and what was going to engage the most with. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And it's funny because when you post a story, it doesn't matter if it's local, doesn't matter if it's from Canada, if it's from international, what have you. It's amazing to see the interaction, the commentary, the feedback. And I'll give you a prime example. Kia in India just started, the product, and they just released the Seltos. I mean, I just did a post literally maybe 24 hours ago, and I already have over 13,000 views on it. And it's amazing to have that link, that connection with people to show that this is where our brand is reaching. And that is what we try to do. It's just to, like you mentioned, engage from the beginning. Engagement has to be positive. It has to be, you have to understand what you're trying, not what you're trying to sell, but what you're trying to represent. Do you stand with the brand or do you stand for the brand? And that's where we try to distinguish ourselves.
Yeah. And that's so cool. And you know what I really love is that you keep using the word story, because that's what really social content is. It's sharing stories and creating a community around stories and engaging back and forth based on what those stories are. I see way too often, dealership social media accounts just literally full of self-serving content. Like, look how amazing we are. Look how happy our customers are. Look how cheap our payments are. It's like post after post after post after post. And there's really nothing there for the consumer to engage with. I mean, there's no story. I mean, what am I supposed to engage when I see a piece of content that advertises a $260 biweekly payment? I mean, like, okay. I mean, that's what I'm supposed to do there, So I've always been under the firm belief that people buy into stories, right? They buy, there's three big stories I've always been a believer of, right? And that's the story of the product. People buy into the story of the product in a huge way. It's cool what you're doing with Kia as far as being an import brand, because import brands have always kind of struggled with that. Their story's always been about the product and the technology, not necessarily, the story of them as a company, right? Where the manufacturers have always kind of done the domestic manufacturers done a better job. Hence the reason why you see a lot more people wearing Ford jackets and Chrysler hats and, and stuff like that, right? But I think that's shifting. It's shifting. You guys are telling that part of that story.
And I think that's absolutely correct. There's that saying that you can't do everything, but you can do something.
Yes.
Right? And you want to do something correctly. And that's what we're trying to achieve. In a population of 46,000, our demographic is very, very small.
Yeah.
We're competing against the big guys, right? And Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, what have you. But it's important for us to stay focused on what we're trying to achieve. And it's working. And I would encourage other dealerships to have a social media director to focus on the product. I like how you mentioned the fact that everything is good. Everybody talks about only the good. There's no negative. You need negativity. You need a little bit of that constructive negativity in order for you to better yourself. Because it's like when you do a survey, after you come for a service or you come for sales, you're seeking 100%. And that's what you want. But realistically, I rather have a survey that hits us hard at 80, 85% and gives us constructive criticism to get to the 100 rather than just have 100 with no commentary.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing with social media. You can never achieve 100%. If I have 10 million followers, there's a billion people in the world, I'm not even close. The goal is target what you can and who you can, but do it in the way, like you said, positive and negative, and not just keep it stagnant. Everything has to be always revolving. And I think that's what's important in social media is if you have that revolvement or have that door, perfection will be sought, and it will be amazing when you do achieve it. And we're still growing.
Well, you guys are still growing, but like I said, you guys are done such an amazing job of staying the course. Like you said, you made a goal and objective for engagement, all right, but you knew what you wanted. You knew where your topic was going to be. You weren't going to be the jack of all trades and master of nothing, right? It's like you were going to be the master of telling the Kia story, right? And for me, like I said, there's always three stories. There's the story of the dealership, story of the manufacturer, story of the product. That's what people buy into. You know, you're covering two of those three right out of the gate with all your social efforts, and people are engaging with that. You know, it's the story of the manufacturer, story of that product, and then people want to buy. They want to participate. They want to be a part of that story, right? But I imagine, like you said, at the point there wasn't a whole lot of engagement out of the gate. You know, that took some time, right?
There wasn't, and when we've had different people at the top of the chain in corporate, it evolutionized who we are. You know, they saw the work that we were doing, and they were like, "Wow, there's nobody that does this." And I remember I call him my teacher because he's taught me. I'm talking about Mr. Stephen Holtzman. He always told me one thing, and I've always learned that from him. It was the fact that we're telling a story, but we are doing something that nobody does. And he's like, that is what distinguishes us. And it's absolutely true. Doesn't matter what brand you're representing stuff that makes you amazing in social media. And yes. I'm still learning every day. I get so many people that send me views and send me stuff about different stories. Post this, post that. And it's amazing. It's nice to see. I mean, sometimes it becomes a little bit unbearable when you have so many messages, but it's that engagement, and that's what we're looking for. And I think even if you look at social media, be it through LinkedIn or social media through Facebook or to Twitter, or whatever avenue you use, just have that dedication to do it. And then everything will come in that time.
So I'm curious, you know, a lot of people out there that are listening to this and go, okay, wow, well, they did it, you know, but I feel the thing the dealerships struggle with the most is that they'll get 3 months into it, 4 months into it, 6 months into it, and they don't start seeing results. And because of that, then they just kind of bag the whole thing, you know, but no, you guys have been at this for 3 years. And like I said, I've been following you for pretty much that 3 years. I mean, your efforts haven't changed. You've been really, really consistent, you know, with your efforts pretty much since the beginning. I mean, I probably got more over time, but it's always been that Kia story. At what point in time did you guys start to see not only just engagement, but did you actually start to see people coming into the dealership, or we start creating lead generation? What point in time in your social efforts did you start seeing lead generation?
I would say probably after the first 6 months.
Okay.
It took some, like I said, in the beginning, there's not many people that they may look at, like you say, after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, they're like, okay, they're doing something. But then when it continues after month 5, 6, 7, after 1 year, year and a half, wow, then it brings something like, wow, they are dedicated to what they do. Yeah, sometimes the news feed is slow, but you still push with what you have. And I feel that after 6 months, we started generating more traffic into the door. And that's what we want, right? Once social media gets you to the front of the door, after that, it's the dedicated sales team, it's a dedicated staff, it's a dedicated service that sells you your first car and gets you into your second. But it's the social media that allows you to get to that point. And that was our goal. Our goal, not only just to engage people into that story, but to get them to arrive into our dealership and to have that face-to-face conversation. So I would say after 6 months, we started seeing some really steady traffic. I think right now we're seeing more. I think people or consumers in general seek more information because the research is unbelievable.
Yep.
And when they come into the dealership, they're already prepared. They've already researched the product. They know about the product. Now it's for us to not just to close it, but to make sure that we have that same amount of information available to us when we talk to our customers. Because it's not about, okay, let's just sell you a car, or let me just sell you a Stinger. It doesn't work like that. It's a fact is, let me tell you about the history of the Stinger. Let's tell you the two main people that brought the Stinger into this country and how it's solidifying our market. That is engagement. That is what we want social media to do.
Because that's what we want people to buy. You know, we want them to buy the story first, product second. You know,
Correct.
and if they're buying the product just for the product, well, look, there's a lot of other cars out there that have 4 wheels and a steering wheel, or 4 tires and a steering wheel. Like there's just, you know, there's a lot of other cars that have that, you know, but it's that passion that you guys have for that, the story of the product and the story of the manufacturer. And then that passion comes out in such an authentic way, both in social media efforts, but also within the dealership, that people actually want to start being a part of that. And, you know, in an area where, well, I mean, yes, you're a little farther out, you know, there's no other, what's the closest Kia dealership to you?
I would say just either Ottawa or Brockville. You're looking at like an hour.
Yeah, so you have a decent amount of distance, but that doesn't change though. There's still a fair amount of competition out there, right? I mean, your competition's not another Kia dealership. Your competition is literally the Nissan dealership down the street, or the Hyundai dealership down the street, or whatever it is, right? But it's whoever's telling the more compelling story. So
and that's what what you just say there is very important. The fact that it's compelling.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a story that resonates with the people, that's what brings them in. I'll give you an example. We were talking off air about the Telluride.
Yep.
Very high commodity SUV. I mean, the slogan is built for the modern family, and it's give it everything. And that's what attracts. I can tell you right now, if I post something about the Telluride, I would get more engagement from our local community, and as well as through the LinkedIn community and Twitter community, than any other post, because they're engaged into that. It's that story. They feel something with it. I mean, if you remember watching the Super Bowl, the Telluride had an amazing commercial.
It was a good piece.
And it was strength. It showed about strength. It showed about the people. It showed about where the story started. As we started from this beginning very discussion, was the fact of engagement. It started from him or her that put the door together of that Telluride to where it is today. And that's what people want. We try not to really compete with other brands. Our focus is us. If we start competing with other brands, we lose focus on what our main achievements are. I mean, our slogan at Uptown Kia is driven by passion. And we are passionate. You can see we're passionate with social media. We're passionate with our sales and service. But it's a team effort. Mm-hmm. And it starts from that ground root. And so when you talk about different brands and different people that we may have to face, you're 100% correct. I'm not going to negate that fact that we're not competing against Hyundai and Honda and what have you. But we also have to compete within ourselves. And that is what I try to always teach everybody, is that when we compete with ourselves, we get the best out of ourselves. And that's what social media is about. It's about getting the best out of your brand.
Because the cool thing with social media is you really can't hide behind it anymore. You know,
No.
It's pretty easy to go to someone's feed and see if they are really authentic and passionate about the story that they're pushing out there. You know, I mean, literally, you can start scrolling through it. If you don't see it, you consume one piece of content, all right, and it's about a specific vehicle, but then you go to the rest of it and it's just about this, that, and this, all this other stuff, right? You don't feel that passion. But when, you know, it's like when I consume one single piece of your guys' content, go to your feed, it's pretty clear where your passion is. You guys have put a lot of effort in. Now, real quick, just frequency, so everyone kind of understands, you know, the strategy a little bit for you guys. How often are you guys posting?
I post every single day.
Every single day.
Every single day. So
There
you're looking at so that is what social media is. If you start in the beginning, like if you come in at work, I mean, I'm usually at work between 7:20 and 7:30 in the morning. I start posting immediately. I focus on local stories, then I focus on international stories, but you post daily. It's the only way that you could honestly, not just to build. It's not about building your numbers. People get the misconception with social media that you need numbers.
Yep.
It's not about numbers. It's not about stats. It's not about analytics. It's about the brand. If you put the brand first, the numbers will follow. And that's what we try to achieve. So posting every day is very, very important to me. I have all my sources, and I start looking at it. I look at the positive, I look at the negative, and I intermix it, because it has to have a content of both. It cannot just be consistent for one. You should be proud. One philosophy I have at Uptown Kia is that we should be proud of our brand, but we should be proud of other dealerships that are also doing really well, and highlight them, expose them, so that they feel good that, wow, somebody's actually watching us and is looking at us. Like, for example, when we started 3 years ago, Jason, on our Twitter feed of Kia Uptown, at Kia Uptown is our Twitter feed, I started at maybe 1 or 2 tweets. We're over 9,800 tweets. I'm pretty close.
Awesome.
I'm pretty close of catching up to corporate. But it's good because it gives that engagement. It doesn't matter if 10 people retweet my post or 1 person retweets my post. At the end of the day, people are watching, and that's what social media is about. It's about having that balance, but having people to watch and engage, and then come in and tell us what they think of the stories.
Well, and it's that commitment through consistency that shows your passion. It's cool because you know what it is you don't have to say you're passionate. Like, you don't actually have to come out and say it. You don't have to come out and do a TV commercial saying, you know what, if you want to deal with the most passionate Kia dealership, in Ontario or in Canada, you come do business with us. You don't actually have to say that. It's there. The proof is there that your commitment to that consistency, it just shows that passion without actually having to say it. And that's absolutely amazing. But I think what's also really key to your success, and everybody that's watching and listening to this, I really want to make sure we drive this home, is that it's not just your posting. You engage all the time. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a single one of your pieces where someone said something that you didn't respond or engage back with.
Oh, 100%. If somebody reaches out to you, it doesn't matter if they're trying to seek a position in the field or they want to comment on the post. It's important to engage back to them. And the reason being is you start that conversation. It's just like in sales. If you're up, person walks through the door, it's that initial conversation. You're not going to be like, oh, welcome to our dealership, and you have no comment, right? So you need to have that engagement. It's important because you know what? It gives them that success. They may take that one sentence or that one word of encouragement or feedback and say, wow, this person actually reached out to me. So now I'm going to have an engagement. I'm going to follow. See, that's what happens. Mm-hmm. You know how you just said, you don't have to say anything. Sometimes less is best.
Yes.
So if you just let the product speak for itself and the brand speak for itself, everything works itself out. But you have to keep working.
Oh, 100%, right? I mean, you're literally just, you don't have to tell them, you're just showing them. Or you're showing the commitment. You're showing the passion, And
Jason, sorry to interrupt.
No.
You'll have those days where it's quiet. You'll have those days where, wow, there's nobody coming to the door. Those are the days.
What days are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean? In our industry? What are you talking about? We have people come through the door all the time, right? No.
Yeah, that's funny actually. But those are the days that you actually have to pick up yourself up and say, hey, should I stop my social media feed today because I didn't have one person come through the door? No, continue. Once you show consistency, that resonates very, very highly with the consumer because they'll be like, wow, rain or shine, they know what they're doing. And they're still there and we're still battling. Because at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want to have that engagement. And that's when I see people, I always ask our sales team, which is a fantastic team. They always tell me, they're like, Neil, somebody came in and they talked about this and they talked about this. It kind of uplifts you like, wow, people are actually reading what we're posting. And it's awesome. Obviously, there's always protocols in place, and I think that's very important in any type of social media form. But at the end of the day, you're engaging the consumer, and that's what's very, very important. Because without having that type of integrity in that social media, that I find that you lose. You lose a little bit of the touch of having that one-on-one with somebody. And no matter what, at the end of the day, you keep pushing. Even if there's 10 walls in front of you, you keep fighting the hurdles. And that's what social media is.
Well, and it's to your point earlier, right? It's not about the size of your audience that matters. It's what you do with that audience that really
That's
matters.
right.
And
That's
if they know that you're always there to engage, and if they ever have a question, you're going to be there with the answer. All right. That means so much to the consumer. That perceived value of that is astronomically high. So,
yeah, no, I 100% I agree with what you were just saying.
So let's talk a little bit about how that kind of works for salespeople. What does this mean to the salesperson? The dealership has this huge commitment to social media. All right, so it's kind of cool actually, because for a lot of dealerships, it's usually the salespeople that have the commitment to the social media, and then the dealership eventually kind of gets into it. But you guys are kind of actually the opposite. The dealership made a big commitment to social media, and then it sounds like the salespeople kind of follow suit. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Every day I will do any type of postings. If it's 10 or 15 postings, and I will go and talk with our sales team and mention to them that, look, this is what's happening today in Kia, in our world. This is what we should be targeting on. Sales take that, and so in their aspect, in their strategy, their main purpose is not just do a quick call, like a cold call, but talk about when they do that call about the things that are happening in the dealership. I mean, if you go to our Uptown Kia website, there'll be a news section. You're looking at I posted over 92 pages. You're looking at over 1,000 stories that people can go and see that are permanently on our site to show that this is what our product is. So sales embodies that. They embody the fact that we have something in front of us that can give us an additional tool to make that sale. And that is what we try to teach, is the fact that if you have a protocol in place and you have social media in place, when that customer comes in, if they're looking for a Forte, a Rio, a Nero, or Soul, or what have you, wow, let me show you a few stories that we have while I go and find out some information for you. So that is what we try to do, is have that one-on-one engagement with the customer, but at the same time, me having that engagement with our team is very important. Any social media director, I mean, you can have titles way long, I mean, you can
there are some out there that's kind of crazy, but yeah, there are some that are pretty nuts.
There's some long titles, but at the end of the day, what is the strategy? Strategy is marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And marketing is imperative in any type of business, but it's how you market. And this is what distinguishes us from others, is the fact that we take our social media, we implemented it to our sales team, who then go in turn and pick up the customers and tell them about our product. And it's amazing. But does everybody get it perfect? No. Obviously, are you going to fumble? Of course. But that's the whole beauty of the automotive industry, is the fact that if you falter, you can pick yourself up and do it again. You do it the right way. Transparency, honesty is very, very important. But at the end of the day, if you can see that light and can see that, we have these tools in place, all you have to do is pick it up and use it. That is what makes any successful team, not just our team, any successful team, is you take the marketing and then you strategize with it by telling the consumer, this is what we have.
And that's really cool. And you know what? I know we talk a lot about transparency and honesty, right? And I think every dealership out there is striving to do that. But that's what I think kind of what's important to us. Is it important to the customer? Absolutely. But I think another thing that's important to the customer that does add value to them is both passion and authenticity.
Right.
Those are big ones. So those are kind of those first ones, right? Like, I don't really know if you're honest or transparent until I start to engage with you. Correct? But before I engage with you, all right, from a distance, I can tell if you're authentic or passionate. It's that commitment, like you said, it's that commitment to it. So I think it's amazing that what your salespeople are doing is, they're not selling payments, right? They're talking about the story. They're getting people to buy into the story before they buy into what's it going to cost, what the payment's going to cost, And the cool thing is, by being able to share those social media links, share those social media feeds, the consumer, either knowingly or unknowingly, gets to see how authentic and passionate you guys are before they even have to get to the point where they come into the dealership.
And I think that's absolutely right. I think the word that you use is perfect. It's authenticity. Authenticity is very imperative in our industry.
It's very rare too.
It's very absolutely. If you're not authentic, if you first of all, you yourself have to be authentic in order to not sell the story, but in order to deliver the story.
Yes.
And once you have that delivery in place, everything else becomes easy as 1, 2, 3. And that's why I love about our consumers. Doesn't matter if it's our specific dealerships or consumers in general. They take social media, they take the news, they take the feeds, they take the posts, what's happening in terms of your product. They bring it in. They say, look, I read about this and I read about this. So A is telling me good, B is telling me bad. What do you think? So if a salesperson, a consultant or advisor, or whatever title you want to provide to them, doesn't understand the negative and the positive of both, then they're not being authentic. Authenticity comes to being like, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir, what you read is correct, but we are fixing A, B, C, and D. Or yes, everything is great and we have A, B, C, D. It's not about, people have that tendency of saying, well, we got to sell the top of the line. If you're going to buy a Stinger, it has to be the GT limited all-wheel drive. But we also have a GT line, which is, at the end of the day, is you sell to what is authentic, not to you, but to the consumer. Because once they know the story, then they easily understand that, yes, you're right. That person is authentic. That salesperson is authentic, telling me exactly not what I want to hear, but more so directing me, it's giving me some options. And that's what we always want to try to do. And any type of marketing, that is very important, is that if you could give some form of a direction, if you have direction in place, then there is no issue at all.
Yeah, and I actually think that's a good point. I think in our marketing efforts and our social efforts, right, our goal should be to show how authentic and passionate we are, because that's something someone can chew on. It's got some girth to it, right? Or like, okay, you know what? That's who I want to look. People want to do business. People want to follow. People want to engage with people that are authentic and passionate. All right. If they don't feel that, then what's really differentiating you from every other dealership out there? Then through engaging with you and having conversations and meeting with you and working through the payment process and the test drive process and everything else, that's where I get to feel the honesty and the transparency that you guys offer.
And I think that's what it is. At the end of the day, that's what we're trying to achieve. Social media is just step one.
Yeah, it's just the enhancement portion of it, right? I mean, shit.
That's right.
You guys have always been authentic and passionate. I don't think that's like new, I mean, probably since the very beginning, you guys have been authentic and passionate. What social media did was just literally take that authenticity and that passion that you have for that Kia story and just amplify the crap out of it.
I tell you a story. There was I got a call last week from a gentleman out of Ottawa who works for another dealership, another Kia dealership. And he's been following my posts on LinkedIn forever. He's like, I just needed to hear the voice, because he's like, I have never seen somebody that embodies so much information. And he's like, what challenges you? What makes you to do it? And at the end of the day is what our conversation's about. It's authenticity. It's about strength, and it's about social media. It's about starting a story and a discussion in order to engage the consumer to come in. So it was actually really rewarding to hear those things, because it's rare. You keep posting, you're so focused, and it's not just about social media. You also have your other marketing duties, standard duties of your your paper and your radio and what have you, and we're competing with the top brands, right? So we have to at the end of the day, I always talked about competing against ourselves. If you compete against yourselves, you always get the best out of you, and that's what we try to achieve.
No, that's awesome. That is really cool. And then the cool thing is, again, that's just proof, all right, that those efforts are coming out, and that's what people are buying into. Even so much so as someone from another dealership is willing to give you a call and just say how you do that, right? So guys, if you're watching, if you're listening to this, I think there's been some great information here, but just a few things I want to highlight on, right? Staying in your lane. You didn't become social and talk about every little thing humanly possible out there. No, you found your niche. Right? You found your story. You found a story that you felt like you could be very authentic about and you can be very passionate about, and just continue with it. That's first. Second, routine. We talked about this, right? I mean, really, how important is the routine to the whole thing? I mean, probably one of the most important parts. right?
Well, it's the most important part.
Right? Because you're going to have those days where someone did engage. You're going to have those weeks that were just kind of crap weeks. You're going to have those months that just, didn't feel like things were jamming well, right? So routine is huge, right? So don't be the jack of all trades, be the master of your space, right? Create a routine and be consistent in that routine, right? It's not the size of the audience you have, it's what you do with that audience that makes a big difference. So engage, right? Like that's super important. Those are the kind of three things I really kind of took as big highlights. Is there anything else that you would like to add to that maybe I missed?
No, I think you targeted everything perfectly. Its routine is very important. Sometimes it becomes very stagnant. You're like, oh my God, is this really working? Are people really, am I doing this? Is it a waste of time? Social media costs you how much? Zero. It just takes your effort and it takes your time.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have that in place, everything else is successful. But it's having that routine. Yeah, it's like when you go to the gym. You can
Good
train.
point.
You go to the gym. It's my New Year's resolution. I'm gonna lose this many pounds, and then after March hits, okay, don't worry. I'm gonna go back in the summer. I'm gonna do some running or walking outside, but it doesn't happen. And what does that show you? It's not that you do not choose to do it. There's that lack of discipline.
Yes.
And that's where social media is. It's having a discipline. So we're very, very strict in terms of our protocol. But at the end of the day, we're very honest with our protocol. And that is what keeps our consistency going and going and going. And it's engaging. You've talked about it throughout this podcast. It's the authenticity, the transparency, but having that story. Yes, you put my name on LinkedIn and you'll only get Kia stuff. But you would engage into that, and that would be like, wow, this guy's really, really passionate about what he does. And it's amazing because where does validation come from, Jason? That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
We do all this and we're like, well, should we get a pat on the back for what we're doing? And we're looking at what we're doing and does it make sense? And at the end of the day, validation comes from your people. And your people, I'm talking about your sales team and your staff and your service team and the technicians and even the guy that's cleaning, just washing the cars and coming and saying, hey, Neil, I really like that story that, you just posted up about, the Telluride or about the new Nero EV that's coming out. And wow, that's impressive because everybody's important to a team. Doesn't matter what position. I was told by Eamon Gabriel, who gave me my shot in the auto industry, I always used to say to people that, I work for Mr. Eamon Gabriel. And at the end of the day, he always used to tell me, he's like, you don't work for me, you work with me. And I think that's what's important with social media and with any type of dealership. You work with your people, you work with your colleagues. You don't work for them, they don't work for you, you work as a team. I think that's very, very, very necessity and important for any type of dealership.
No, 100%. And that's really at the end of the day, what brings everything together. That's awesome. And thank you for that, Neil. Hey, Neil, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today, dude. That was a lot of fun, and I really, really appreciate that. I really encourage everyone to go check out Neil and Uptown Kia and what they're doing right now on social. Look at that. Tell me if you can't see that authenticity, that passion, and that commitment to the routine, because it won't take you long. Literally, you flip through a few pages and it's going to be pretty obvious. Hey, for everybody out there that would love to learn more about you guys and maybe connect with you yourself, what is the best way to do so?
So first of all, Jason, I want to take this opportunity to thank you. I mean, I've been following you, and I had to comment in the beginning that you're wearing orange. I mean, that's your trademark. I mean, you should have that copyrighted. That's amazing.
Consistency, right? That's what we're talking about, right?
Consistency. It is authenticity. At the end of the day, I wanted to thank you for reaching out to me and having this discussion. I think it's important. I think you do a lot of amazing stuff in terms of talking and not just about marketing, but finding out what type of people are working in marketing.
Yep.
And that's important. So I wanted to thank you for that. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our dealer principal, Mr. Steven Eastman. He's worked very hard to put Uptown Kia on the map. So I wanted to thank him. People can watch me and follow me on LinkedIn. Just type in my name, type in Uptown Kia. You'll get our feed. Twitter, we're at Kia Uptown. And we can be reached. We're here at 1405 Rosemont Avenue, and we'll be glad to see anybody and everybody. At the end of the day, one thing is very important to us. We're driven by passion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the shout out to our sales team, who are amazing, our F&I, to our service, to our technicians, even to the people that come and clean the dealership. At the end of the day, we're all a team and we're all united. So Uptown Kia is where the place is to be. And I thank you so much, and continue to follow us and continue to follow Jason, because what you're doing is allowing us to have a forum in order to improve not just the brand, but the auto industry. So I thank you very much, Jason, for your time on this.
No, I appreciate the kind words, Neil. That means a lot to me. And yourself and the whole team over at Uptown Kia, you guys are absolutely crushing it. You guys keep up the good work. Thank you so much for your time. And you have yourself a wonderful day.
You as well, Jason. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
We covered a bunch of great topics today. What stood out most to you? Be sure to let us know in the comment section below. And don't forget to like the post and share it to keep the conversation going. You can follow Jason on all social media platforms by following Strategy with Jason. You can find him pretty well everywhere you can share content. I hope we were able to get you thinking. And until the next time, this has been Nathan with Digital Dealership Solutions. Have a great day.